that's about. John Mayer singing that we are waiting on the world to change. And of course, this is a reference to one in the picture up there, which shows the time just moving and moving and moving and moving and waiting. And I've added that adage that has been shared with me on more than one occasion in my life about my ability to wait, which is patience is not the ability to wait, but the ability to keep a good attitude while waiting. What does all have that to do with our faith and our scriptures? Well, you have an image today of the 10 bridesmaids that have come, 5 with enough oil in their lamp to maintain the vigilance, the time of waiting, and 5 that did not and were unprepared. And traditionally, church people tend to think of this as we're supposed to wait patiently and diligently and be fully prepared for Christ to come, and that he is coming at any one point in time. But the point of this parable is not constant readiness. That's the part that gets missed. It's not about being constantly ready. Keep awake does not imply that the disciples should never fall asleep, standing vigil through the ages of Christ's imminent return. In fact, all the bridesmaids, wise and foolish, actually fall asleep when they shout. They are asleep, and they are asleep when the announcement comes of the groom's approach. What is distinctive about this parable is its focus on the delayed return of the expected one. This passage does not simply call for the right actions in the groom's absence. It calls for recognition that he will be delayed. So you have to understand, this parable was actually written 50 years after the crucifixion of Jesus. 50 years. Pretty much all of the eyewitnesses of that account on that day were already dead. This was spoken to the generation and into the second generation after the death and resurrection. A year after this, the temple falls, and again the Hebrew people are waiting. 2,000 years later, we're still waiting. What this parable is about is the waiting. We don't know how much oil we need for the lamp. We don't know what it means to be prepared. We've lost sight. There's an anxiety in this world, an anxiety that is actually addressed by Paul to the Thessalonians about what kind of world they were working in and living in and what they were ready for. What were they looking for? There is that aspect, he says to them, that God will eventually raise them from the dead. We have Joshua saying to his people who have been waiting and waiting and waiting to get into the promised land and to build a life, you choose. Your choice about following God. So that's the scriptural references, but now what does that have to do with your life? Anybody here know how to wait? We wait all the time. We wait constantly. We're waiting for news from the doctor. Will it be good? Will it be bad? We're waiting to graduate. We're waiting for a new job. We're waiting to move. We're waiting for a baby to arrive. We're waiting for the family to come home. We're waiting for our neighbor to finally move away. It's a world full of waiting. But I truly believe there is a difference between waiting with no sense of hope in this world, no sense of grace in this world, with no sense of wonder in this world, to waiting with that sense of God's presence, that I'm not alone, that I live in God's world. That no matter what I face or what I'm waiting for, there will be a difference eventually that will make the waiting worth the while. Less stress. So it really comes down to the ability to keep a good attitude while waiting. How do we do that? People can pray, and they do. Usually those prayers are the ones that are done by, oh God, do I have to wait one more minute? How long? Or the quintessential child's prayer to the parents, are we there yet? Has it happened yet? Those of you with children and grandchildren, or younger children and grandchildren, will, maybe the older ones too, will know what and how intolerable waiting is over the next month as we wait for December 25th to roll around. My mother was always like that. She could not wait to give a gift. Man, I had to tell her, Mom, I don't get my gifts on the 3rd of December or the 6th of December or whatever day you bought it. You know, wait, put it under the tree. People are like that. We're not patient. We don't know how to wait. But here's what I think makes the big difference and what really has the faith has to say about this faith. John Mayer talks about waiting for the world to change. We're waiting for a better quality of life. I could have used, actually, a Tom Petty song called The Waiting, in which he says that the waiting is the hardest part. And how we don't do it well. So I want to talk to you. How many people like waiting rooms? Waiting rooms are actually fun. Did you know that? You go to a waiting room with the right attitude, doctor's office, airport, doesn't matter where. You wait. You get to watch people. You get to see people. But the really cool part about being in a waiting room is when you mess up people's minds by interacting with them. Instead of just sitting like a bump on the log, staring obliviously at the Muzak speaker coming out of the ceiling and fretting, you know, turn to the person next to you. The airports are great. Turn to the airport train stations. Turn to the person next to you and say, do you want to go over and watch the trains with me? What? Oh, you know. Or where are you from? Where are you going? Make a conversation. You start to interact with people. You make friends that way, by the way. You meet contacts with people. And there are a lot of waiting rooms. You know, there's doctors' offices and dentist offices and lawyers' offices, and it could be anything. You know, one of my favorite plays was Thomas Beckett's Waiting for Godot, just sitting on a park bench waiting. There's Samuel Beckett, Thomas Beckett. I'm getting my theologians and my writers mixed up. But the best waiting room in the world, by far, do you know what it is? Any suggestions? You're in it. Right now. This is the world's best waiting room. Because this is a waiting room for a community who have gathered to interact with one another in a way that says we are preparing ourselves and our lives for whatever will come. We are engaging here together in the spirit of Christ with the wisdom of God and the grace that the Spirit brings to us in all things. And we are going to engage together in this place, and we are going to break down the walls that divide. We are going to break down the fears that overwhelm us as we wait. We are going to share the joys of the things we are waiting for, and we are ultimately going to share in the joy of the presence of Jesus Christ. That's what this waiting room is about. And it's when you come into this room and you spend this amount of time waiting on the world to change, that when we go out, we change the world. We draw strength to deal with whatever's happening in our lives. Waiting for whatever solution and outcome we are expecting. We are doing it no longer alone. We are understanding that we are connected. We are in God's world. And that we are not alone. God is with us. And that presence is revealed in these faces here. In these people here. Some of us have enough oil in our lamps. And some of us don't. The difference between this waiting room and the one that Jesus was talking about was not just about the foolish ones who didn't come with enough. It was more about the ones who wouldn't share what they had. There was enough for everyone, but only if it was shared in that waiting space. This is where the world changes. This is where we get enough oil to nourish our lives. This is where we feed one another. And this is where we build our lives and our faiths. And this is where God is revealed through Jesus Christ. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. I'm going to invite you to give a gift to God. Teach me, God, to wonder. Let's give our voices, and we'll pray over that later on as an offering at the offering time. Number 299.